so we had a little camera trouble and now we're back. You were telling us about your trip from Oklahoma to California in your Model 4T truck.
Yeah. There was about 10 of us, 10 family members, all together in the truck, and we had the mattresses laying down so we could be comfortable during the trip, more or less. And we had a canvas top on the old truck, and we had all of our pots and pans and everything we owned, brooms hanging off the sides, just like in John Steinbeck's Grapes of Wrath. And it was quite a time. We would have flats on the way, and they wouldn't have the proper materials to fix the flats, so they'd have to hitchhike back into town and get it fixed. Meanwhile, we would camp on the side of the road, and sometimes it would, be quite a while during the day until they got back, and then we go on down the road, have car trouble, have engine trouble, maybe a transmission. It was a bad time, a lot of problems.
Okay, so there was a lot of problems. So when did you show up at the Valley?
We showed up in Brawley, California. That I'm not sure why they came there, but it was a desert town, and that's where we started off our California experience. It was better than Oklahoma in Arkansas, and we had more money, not a lot of money, but so we started our fruit picking, traveling up and down California.
Okay. So you had a couple embarrassing experiences in school during then.
Yes. One time I remember clearly, I'll never forget, I guess, is I was in about the fifth or sixth grade, and I went to this one room schoolhouse where they taught from first grade to sixth grade. And I was sitting there, probably one of the biggest guys in the class, and she was teaching the little kids how to tell time. And suddenly she looked at me and said, "Bob, tell them what time it is." And I couldn't. I didn't know how to tell time. I suddenly realized I'd missed that part in school. So I was really embarrassed. My face got real red, and she said, "Well, you're going to learn right now." And she proceeded to teach me right then, with all the eyes in the class looking at me, how to tell time. So I learned.
And you were good to adapting to situations.
Yes, you learned. When you went to 4 or 5 schools each year, you learned how to adapt to make a friend, at least one friend when you walked in, and you just learn how to adapt. So I think that's helped me during my lifetime.
Okay. So why don't you tell me about moving from farmhouse to farmhouse and that?
Right. They didn't have the money to rent a house, so we would just go out and find an old abandoned ranch house or something sitting in a pasture, and we'd move into it and just live there until we got through with the fruit or whatever. And one time we moved into this abandoned house, and during the night we woke up, the house was shaking on its foundations, and there was a herd of cattle in the field, loose in the field, and they had bulls in there, and the bulls were upset that we were there, I guess. So anyway, they were hitting our house. They'd come and hit it with their head, and we were scared. We were afraid they were going to knock the house down and kill us. So we tried to fight them off. My uncle got an ice pick, and he stabbed the bull in the nose with the ice pick and chased him off. And we had to get in the car that night and move out and go find another place.
And where'd he find an ice pick at?
We had it. Back then, we had ice picks everywhere because we didn't have refrigerators. We'd go to town and buy this chunk of ice and bring it with us, and then you use an ice pick to knock it off chunks of it.
And eventually you moved into Arvin, California?
Yes. It was a labor camp. I call it a labor camp. It was for the fruit pickers, and we were picking cotton that year. That's one of the roughest, toughest things I ever did, pick cotton, because your hands would get all bloody. You'd reach up there, and they had the cotton bolls, and had these thorns, I guess, and you just, your hands would be bleeding. So that was a tough time.
Okay. Picking cotton in Arvin, California, how'd that affect school?
Well, we missed some school, but most of the fruit picking was in the summertime, so we didn't miss all that much.
All of it?
Yeah.
Okay. So, World War II got us out of the Great Depression. What's your most clear memory of World War II?
My most, I guess, is the end of the war. Uh, During the end, they called up my dad, even though he had children, they called him up in the draft, sitting back in Fort Knox, Kentucky, Fort Knox, where all the money is. And we went back there to see him as he graduated from basic training. And we were back there in a little motel. We stayed for seemed like weeks, and wait for him to graduate. And we had a great time. My brother and I, we had the money to go into a restaurant and order anything we wanted every day. It was a grand time. One night, we woke up to a bunch of noise. Everything that couldn't make noise was making noise. The cars, horns were honking, people were yelling, whistles were blowing, and and the war was over. Germany had been defeated.
Okay. And what do you think? Why do you think World War II got us out of the Great Depression?
Well, I think it got us out because unemployment was at least 25% during the Great Depression, and the war put everybody to work. They had to make the bombs, they had to make the airplanes, they had to make the tanks, they had to do all this, and everybody could get a job. So that brought us out of the Great Depression.
Okay. So, the Great Depression to you was just basic life then. It was just your life.
It was,
You did not
yeah.
know
It's
you
what
were
I
in
knew.
anything.
No, I wasn't unhappy about it. It's just the way life was.
Okay. Well, being in a recession right now, do you think if we go into a depression, it's going to be more obvious to you?
Yes, I do. It'd be much more obvious and more painful probably today than it would be back then.
You don't think you're going to be all happy?
I got used to a little money, and so if I was to lose it all and have to go back to those days, it would be hard. I could adapt, and I would make it, but it'd be hard.
It'd be hard.
Yes, I'd be probably have to fight the Great Depression.
Yeah. Okay. So, well then, thanks for sharing your interesting experiences during the Great Depression and how it affected your life.
You're welcome, Brad.
That's the end of this interview.